Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of the Ceres podcast. In today's episode, Mark Petrou is joined by Kate Mills, Sales Development Manager at Stokes Sauces, based in Woodbridge, Suffolk. They talk about Kate's career, the story behind Stokes's, and the sauces they produce at the Old Stable in Rendlesham. I think I said that right. From traditional favourites to more modern twists on classic recipes. Before we begin, a quick note. We've completely redesigned the Ceres calculator suite to make it easier to use across all devices, with improved navigation and the ability to save and share results, alongside favourites such as the gross profit calculator, energy cost calculator, fish calculator. We've just got so many calculators now, and we just see the repeat users coming in day after day, week after week. So we can see that the usage is there. So we're really happy that they seem to be working, and the feedback that we get from you all is just great. So keep using them, sharpen your decisions for your business. Ultimately, it's good to shoot from the hip, but you need the data to be able to do so. On another note as well, we now have a new system, a review system on our website. If you leave us a verified review, so you've got to buy the product from our website, you will get your name added to the pot, and you could win up to £100. George Morey left us a review last month, and he just won £100 store credit. So we're trying to do this because we're encouraging genuine reviews. We don't have any non-bought items. Every review you see is someone that has bought something. So do so, leave us a review, use the calculators, and I hope you enjoy this episode with Kate Mills and Mark Petrou.
Kate, it's really good to have you here on the Ceres podcast. I know that you're a fan of the podcast and you like to listen to them when you're walking your dog. How's it going to feel when you walk your dog and you listen to yourself?
Honestly, Mark, I haven't been able to listen to the last few because I'm too nervous just to even see the logo.
Really?
So I'm just going to have to wait until Stelios has posted enough that I can't see my icon anymore, and then I can start again.
Well, it's really good to have you here. You've absolutely no need to be nervous because we're I'd say we're chums. We've known each other for a long time, and getting me on the podcast is a bit like going down to this morning and being left with Eamon and Ruth instead of Phil and Holly. You know, you've got me and not and not Stelios, but this is just two mates having a chat, really.
Yeah, exactly.
I've wanted to have you on the podcast for some time. You have an official job title and you work for an eminent company that's based in, that has a legitimate reason to be in the fish and chip business, and that's Stokes Sauces. And I know that you're not here to promote Stokes Sauces, but I can't avoid the fact that, and I want to dive deep into Stokes Sauces, their back history, because I think it helps to paint a really good picture of who you are, and the listener will understand you a lot better as well. Let's start though, if I may, by talking about your early life and how you got to be in Stokes Sauces.
Okay.
And then the real reason why I got you here is obviously your insight into hospitality. So we have to do things in a certain order, but please.
Yep.
Start with your journey and take us up to where you started working at Stokes's.
Okay. It's quite a long time, Mark.
We've got plenty of time.
So where I'd start really is my childhood and my family and my parents. And it's, you prepare for a podcast like this and you think, you kind of reflect on what you've done and where you've been, and then suddenly it's like, oh, that makes sense. That's why I feel an affinity with working within the fish and chip industry. And I'll say right from the off, I've had a very eclectic career. I've had 3 complete career changes in my life, but I feel at home at last. And I think
that's good.
When I tell you about my childhood, it hopefully it gives a bit of credibility, so your listeners will think, oh, okay, so she kind of doesn't fry fish, but she gets it. She understands that front-facing brand of family-run business. So my mum and dad are both hairdressers, and I think probably my grandparents were as well. So dad had a shop in a nearby town of Ipswich, and then the downstairs of our house, 50% of that was a proper hair salon. It wasn't like a at-home hairdressers. It was a proper setup with the 1980s hair dryers along the back, and then the hair washing stations and all of that kind of thing. So that's where I came in from school, through the salon, out through the back, through the staff room and into our house. And so there was myself for a long time, then my little sister came along 10 years later, and we were always brand ambassadors for our parents' business. We'd walk in the street and everyone would know our business. They'd know what GCSEs we were doing, how we were getting on at school, how we did at sports day, because our parents would have talked to them when they were cutting their hair. So I know what it is to have a business that's front facing. And my dad always said, you're only ever as good as your last haircut. You can't rest on your laurels.
There's lots of comparisons that you can make with fish and chips.
So many.
Yeah.
So many. And, fish and chips is unique within the food service industry in that you are a community. And I found that very quickly when I nudged the door open on Your World. I was like, oh, okay. I've worked at Stokes for coming up to 10 years. And before that, a lot of, and still is what a lot I do is work with food service and restaurants and cafes and pubs and things. And there'll be groups and there'll be movement between exec chefs going to different areas and they'll bring Stokes with them. But it was when I nudged the door on fish and chips and you've got people going, oh, you want to phone my mate down the road? He'd gotten really well with Stokes. And I'm like Googling it saying, well, they're only about 8 miles away. Yeah. Well, our dads were mates and we're mates. What's good for them is good for us.
Yeah.
And I thought, gosh, this is really a community that wants to bring that together. And that again goes back to my upbringing because, my dad had 2 shops. My mum worked in one and they owned the other one. And he was also a member of Hairstyle Syndicates 365. He looked out for his staff from a young age. I'd be a hairdressing model and I used to sit on stage and have my hair cut. And as I got older, the haircuts would get more and more dramatic to the point that at one point, Mark, I was having undercuts before they were fashionable, right back in it's sort of 96. I think I had my first undercut. So you're standing on the stage having your hair done and coloured as a model at these huge events. They had industry awards that he'd support his staff to go into, and I'd see them come around and he'd be helping them create mood boards of what's on trend and looking forward within the industry and really helping his team to be the best that they can be. And again, you go to the industry events within fish and chips, you go to the awards, you see members of the public, you see business owners taking their staff with them. And I was at an awards recently and someone was being interviewed and they said, oh, and here's your mum. I was like, that's not the mum, that's the owner. However, it's very much like that because they were there supporting their staff.
Yeah.
So it's very, and I started thinking, there's a lot of parallels here of understanding people working within their own business, their own KPIs and their own margin, etc., and yet understanding the nuance of a wider community and the benefit of that wider community. Dad used to pay me to sort out his receipts. I look back now and I think, right, so I was an absolute steal, but I used to sit for hours sorting out his receipts and then we'd have chats about what he was going to do. And I can remember one day when I thought, actually, he's taking me seriously. We talked about the hours that he was opening and he said, well, actually, and I said, why don't you think about closing on a Monday? Just close on a Monday. I know that your staff will appreciate a day off in the week. They'll then be more happy to work on a Saturday. They've still got a 2-day weekend. And he did. And that was a bit of a moment where I thought, he's actually listening to what this 15-year-old is saying, going the other way. And he taught me about, you've got to remember this was like in the 80s. So he was a real advocate for women in the workplace. And he would say, you've got a staff that are mostly women. And they come in, that you train them up from 14 as a Saturday girl, then they have to leave college and they start training with you, go through college, and inevitably they want to have children, but you need to facilitate an environment that they can come back. So you need to have the pricing structure, you need to have the workforce that allows you to any one time. He said you're going to have 2 invisible staff members because they're off on maternity or they're looking after their kids or they're part-time working.
Yes.
And that kind of made me think, actually, it is about the people, and that's what drives me I'm a salesperson, but actually I'm consumer led. I'm person led always. And I just kind of take that from him as well. And actually, I was listening to this podcast and I heard Jeff from Whitehead saying something very similar. I picked up the phone and just spoke to him.
Yeah.
And like we're friends now, supply him now. I said, I really liked what you said about your staff being the centre of your business. So yeah.
So you learned some really really transferable skills from that career.
Really young.
You've definitely brought them with you into
Yeah.
this.
And it's not even my career. Like that was just living in a household with my parents being business owners, having these chats about running two independent businesses and the trends and the highs and lows of, you know, how it all works. You know, it was really interesting. When Dad had to move salons once, he was looking at the shop frontage of his window, and he had more glass space for his salon than any other hairdresser in Ipswich. I said, well, so I pay a premium for that because you pay more money to have window space in the town centre. And he said, but actually, I can make money from the window. So he's incentivized the staff, the add-ons, making sure that when they're washing their hair, they say, did you want this? You can buy that with us, you know. And making friends with the reps when they came around, understanding every element of it. It's not just, it's the whole experience.
Yeah.
And I took on board and, you know, sort of ran with it. And then you've got my mum, who is a tour de force of if you're awake, you can be achieving. You know,
wow.
You know, it's 7:30. Get out of bed. I've already walked the dog, mowed the lawn, cooked a 3-course meal. Come on, Kate, up you get. Let's get on with it. But she's, you know, another creative. And most weekends when we were growing up, she was a potter, and we go out and we sell her work purely because we needed space in the house, and we had a kiln that was her hobby. And really, you know, that phrase, you can sell snow to the Eskimos. Well, that's my mum. And so
she sounds inspirational, actually.
She is she fills a room, do you know what I mean? And really very strong character, but has her head in the game, but you know, just knows what to say and how to work a room, but not over salesy still. You still want the product. Ultimately, she had a really good product she was selling, but it was good fun. So that was my upbringing. And actually, when I went for my interview at Stokes 10 years ago, Rick Sheepshank, who's the owner, to put it into perspective, I'd just been made redundant. I was on the dole. It was coming up to Christmas. I had a little baby, or 18-month-old, and I just needed a job. And no one wanted to offer me a part-time job. They wanted me full-time. I was like, no, I need to be with my family. I need that kind of life balance. So I went into this interview with Rick, and it was only for 5 weeks worth of work just to pack the boxes for Christmas orders. And I'm still there. So, and he'd said to me then, are you a salesperson? Are you sales? You've come for a packing job, but are you actually sales? And at that time, and I've reflected on that many times, and I think, do you know what? I think I was born sales. Yeah. So in the 80s, I come home from school. You've got the Blue Rinse Brigade lined up at the back of the salon with having their hair set every week, as it was the fashion then. I would run up to them with a piece of paper, ask them what their favourite colour is, run back out, make a friendship bracelet. I've then got 40 minutes to get back in the salon and then sell it to them. I think my prices were 7p for a 3-threaded bracelet and 9p if it had more colours. And then I could go down to Felixstowe Market on a Sunday and buy more threads with the money. And I was like, we're going to take over the world with my friendship bracelet. And I'd been about 9 or 10 years old then. So I've always had like a
entrepreneurial flair.
Yeah, exactly. Seen a gap in the market. No, but crucially, find out what they want. Find out what it is that they need, then fulfill that. So I'm not going to try and sell them a pink bracelet if their favourite colour's blue. So I have to go and make the one to order, you know. So
Rick Sheepshank rescues animals as well, doesn't he?
He does, yes.
Do you think when you came along, he saw you and thought,
I think you probably did, Mark.
This person has far more potential than I'm taking her on for. You know, she needs the opportunity to fly.
I think, do you know what?
Or have I just insulted you?
No, you haven't. I think you've hit the nail on the head. If anybody has ever been made redundant in their life, you are broken. And I was broken. And I'd applied for jobs that I was overqualified for. And I'd applied for jobs I was underqualified. I'd been offered jobs and turned them down because they wanted me to work full time. And I wasn't prepared to have this baby that I desperately waited for a long time, and then not be with her for at least 2 days a week. And that was all it was. I just wanted to work 3 days a week, and that was the opportunity. And work is still very flexible and allow me to have that kind of, you have to, I say it to people all the time, we have to work to live. You shouldn't live to work, because that's not what they put on your gravestone. They don't talk about how many hours you did in a week. They talk about your relationships. So that is, for me, really important, that I still have that kind of life-work balance.
You said that you had, a couple of careers before you got to Stokes's, and we seem to have leapfrogged those, but I am going to come back to them because I want to hear what they are.
Right.
But obviously, Rick saw something in you in those 5 weeks.
Yeah.
And I could already tell that maybe a bit of your mum's entrepreneurial flair came out in those 5 weeks, and your entrepreneurial flair and her, you seem to be a good mix of them. Stokes Sauces is an amazing story because they started in 2004.
Yeah.
And Rick really was developing sauces to try and entice his daughter to eat.
Yep.
And that was it, really.
Yep.
And now, go forward 22 years, and Stokes Sauces is still very much a family-run business. It's got that family feel to the company structure. Every family still turns up and works every day.
Absolutely.
And you're an adopted member of that family now because you've been there a decade. But now Stokes is selling into 70 countries.
I know.
So it's still got that family ethic, that the family spirit, but it's won awards for its branding.
Yeah.
Big awards for its branding.
Yeah.
And yet Stokes, it's gone into a market which would intimidate most people because it's sewn up by probably one of the 5 or 6 biggest brands in the world. How can you take on somebody like that? But when I look at the credentials of Stokes's, the fact that it's made in the UK, and we've fallen out of love with Americans because of tariffs. So the food miles are lower, the provenance of the product, the taste of the product.
Yeah.
It makes sense really for us to be, to sell British fish and chips as an iconic meal, to actually sell Stokes. But how do you take that? How do you take that on?
Well, in terms of the business, Rick had been making and selling sauces and mayonnaise previous to Stokes, and at one point they were making mayonnaise, and if you were having mayonnaise in a sandwich, and this wasn't under the Stokes brand, but this was the previous business that he was working within, if you were eating a sandwich on the high street, it will have been a sauce, a mayonnaise that he has been part of producing. That's how big it was. But the price pressure started to push against his principles of the quality of the product. So yes, we can make it a bit cheaper, but actually we can't use as much egg or as high quality olive oil, or as, the provenance of the product was being compromised.
Have to value engineer it, I think they call it, don't they?
Yes, and so he then, and this takes a lot for someone to say, well, my principles are bigger than the business that I'm working within, and he walked away. So he left that, and obviously then couldn't do a lot in food service because that'd been food service, and then started focusing on retail. And at that point, so that was the mayonnaise, and he went back to the roots of a real proper mayo. And I'm hoping a lot of your listeners have tasted it and will understand. If you haven't, then you need to try some. So it's you can make a mayo. You can make any product really using the very basic ingredients, but we would always put the very best from the best provenance and the best quantity of it in the product, right? So we have 12% whole British free range egg in it. It's got 5% extra virgin olive oil in there, and that's what gives it that real creamy, smooth flavour. But that olive oil isn't just any olive oil. It's recognised as the best olive oil that you can get on the market. Koroniki oil, it's called. And to put it into some context, the price that we pay for 4 tons of that oil, you could get 40 tons of a normal oil, right? But it's not as good. So we buy the best olive oil. And, another link into fish and chips, you guys can link back to where your fish is caught. Rick knows the owner of the vineyard and will walk around the vineyards. Our operations director was in Greece on holiday and he went and walked around it just a couple of weeks ago. There's that relationship right down literally to the grassroots of understanding our suppliers and that provenance and that product. So that's where that started. And then you're absolutely right with the ketchup. It was trying to get his children to eat more vegetables. So you can make a ketchup with 125 grams of tomato, cook it down, a few other ingredients, and you've got a ketchup. But actually, what we do is we start with 200 grams of tomato, cook it down to 100 grams, and that's Stokes. And that is why it's that overriding flavour of tomato on there. And if people haven't tried it, just like do a blind tasting. Think about what you think a ketchup's going to taste like, and then you taste Stokes and you'll go, oh, it's meant to taste like tomato. And that is because it is 200 grams cooked down. And that child that he was getting to eat it now sits next to me in the office and heads up our marketing department. So yeah, shout out to Ruby. So it's kind of a full circle thing. And I think like what you were saying in terms of where am I and why, if you've got core pillars that you stick to, it's got to be the best quality tasting. It's got to have a good provenance. You've got to make it in the best way possible. Then you've got a good product. And my personal thing is I say, I don't do tit for tat. I've said that all the time. I always say that. I'm not here to bring down another brand to make myself feel better or our brand better. It speaks for itself. You taste it, the provenance. You've talked a lot about, yourself. It's a British made brand. It supports our local community very locally with that people that we employ. And we've been going for over 20 years. And so that, again, people speak with their money. And so they obviously like it because we kept going and we're getting bigger and bigger and we're able to adapt. We're able to bring the products in because we are small and family run in comparison to other bigger brands. So we can adapt and, tweak the way that we do things so that we can remain competitive. So yeah, it's exciting. It's been worrying over the last few years, as it has been for everybody. But actually, I think Stokes does well. I think it supports businesses now where the shopper is looking for, if I'm going to spend my money, it has to be the best that I can get. And that is where we're at. So
I'm going to come back to Stokes's, but I want to finish your journey. I know we're pinging all over the place, but that's how conversations go sometimes. We've got a few tabs open. What did you do after you were working in the hairdressers and being a model? Because you said you had other careers.
I was a hairdressing model. I was never in the salon. I was always just the child of the parents that were hairdressers, along for the ride with all these things. So did I become a hairdresser? No. Did my sister? No. So that's the end of that family heritage. But we're both creative. I'm certainly creative. So I actually went on and did a degree in textile design. I was either going to end up being an artist or on the stage somewhere along the line. So yeah, my poor dad, off I went. What are you doing? Yeah, I'm going to do a degree in sewing, Dad. Lovely. Is there any jobs in that? Well, we'll see. But actually, I was one of the few that actually did all right. Reflecting back, I just think I'm a bit cheeky sometimes. Part of my degree was I did some work experience and I went down to London and I worked at Ideal Home magazine. So I was like setting up photo shoots and things for them and actually got photos in there, like all the staging and things, which just our stuff from around the house. I was like, oh, look, Dad, that's a picture of your mum from the 1940s on that dressing table and stuff. So anyway, so I got there and I had a press card. So I held on to that. I thought that would come in handy one day. And then a couple of years later, after I'd finished my degree, I went to an exhibition in Paris and I took my press card with me. And then I also happened to wear some clothes that I'd done some embroidery on, embellishment on, and went and introduced myself to people. Of course, they don't talk to you if you've got student or, just a visitor on your label. But when you've got press, then they'll have a chat.
Opens doors.
Opens the doors, absolutely. And I came away and I had an agency. So I'm like, okay, that's good. So then I'm designing fabrics and selling to an agency. So that was just a little bit of
I think we call that a result, don't we?
A result, but also just a bit cheeky to walk in wearing my own stuff and then coming out with an agency. And I did that, I think, in my third year. There was another person that I was making some bespoke cushions for and stuff, but I never really I liked designing and then that's done and dusted. Let's go on to the next thing. I didn't want to keep remaking the stuff. So unlike my mum who would make pots and pots and pots and we'd sell them on a Sunday, I wasn't up for that. I was like, yeah, there's no margin in that. I just want to design it and then move on to the next thing, or when I was on my degree, I had a lecture by a guy called Lee Lapthorne, and there's moments in your life and you think that was a pivotal moment. So you can all Google him. He's like an on and off schedule catwalk producer, and he's just jewelry and all sorts. But he'd also been to my college, and he was a few years older, and he came in and he said, first of all, hold yourself to standards that if other people don't uphold them, don't acknowledge them. You don't have to bend your ways for them. Know what your morals are, know what your standards are. Those standards of Stokes again, aren't we? I was like, yeah, I take that on. I like that. And if anyone walked into his lecture late, he'd get them stand up, turn around and walk out, shut the door behind them. He said, if you can't turn up on time, then you don't turn up at all. And he told a story about how he'd been on the underground. Someone had dropped all their papers. He'd picked them up, noticed a name that he recognised in the fashion industry on this piece of paper, and said, oh, do you want me to carry these for you? You obviously got a lot to hold, and got his first job working for this woman. So then fast forward a few years later, and I'm on a bus waiting for a bus, and there's this kid stood there, and he looks at me, and he's looked, that face of ashen where he's going, I've got no money, I can't get home. I was like, well, I'll lend you some money. Where are you going? He said, I just got to get the bus to so and so. I said, all right, here you go, have some money. Gave him this money. He then said, what are you doing? And I said, I've just finished my degree in design. He said, I think my dad does something to do with sewing. I said, well, does he? And he said, yeah, look, I'll give you my phone number and then I can get this money back to you. I said, it really doesn't matter. Long story short, over the next 4 years, I ended up designing for quite a lot of highly prestigious football clubs. I designed for Adidas. I did some really high profile brand designing. So although I wasn't doing the kind of creative embroidery that I'd done in my degree, I was doing a lot of sportswear.
Because you lent a kid some money on a bus.
Yeah, because I lent the kids some money on a bus. I must have been really hard up because I wanted that quid back. So I then spoke to his dad and he said, well, come in if you've got this portfolio. I went in and they said, we've had a brief, but we've got no one to fulfill it. Can you spend the next week, a couple of weeks doing a bit of work? So I did this brief. And when it was presented by the sales team, they said it's the most comprehensive design brief they've ever been given. So they said, right. So I then had a laptop at the end of a desk of our accountants team where they were like, well, we can't let her go, so we'll just shove her on. We haven't even got a table for her. So I'm sat at the end teaching myself how to use design software, and then worked my way up from the bottom and became senior designer for those guys, and had some really big labels that we worked with. But ultimately, if I wanted to continue in design at that level and to further my career, I needed to move to the city. And having lived in Birmingham and then moved back to rural Suffolk, I just not a city girl. I've already, every day I'm up early, walk the dogs in the garden. I'm just not a city girl. And so by that point, I then met my future husband, and we were thinking, like 2.4 children, and I need to get a mortgage and all those sorts of things. And I left the design agency that I was working for. I could see the writing on the wall with them, to be honest. And they went bankrupt a year later, but I could see how we were absolutely getting flogged. And so I just had to get out. And then I started working in a call centre. And this was before the likes of all the websites and things. So we were just absolutely, the money that I earned, Mark, I can't even tell you. The bonus, I was very good at my job, as you can imagine, because I like to talk, and there were no online comparison sites. So we helped people shop for insurance. That's all we did. But I got 50p every transfer. And my goodness, I earned the money. But what I actually did was then buy my parents Christmas presents to see Rod Stewart and stay in a hotel. So I absolutely spent every penny that I earned. And now I look back, I think, I was earning £1,500 bonus a month. What was I doing? I think that's why Phil married me as well, because our first Christmas I bought him a PS3.
I'm sure there are other reasons why Phil married you.
So I worked there, worked my way up, and then that's where I then was unfortunately made redundant after I had a baby, went back, and then was supervisor looking after the quality control team, monitoring calls and all that sort of thing, and then was made redundant, and then found myself at Stokes. Yet again, though, starting at the bottom and working my way up. But each time, looking back, I've always been a people person. I've always liked a product. And I've only ever liked a product that I can back, whether I'm designing it or someone else's. I think possibly that's why I ended up leaving the design agency, because, again, they were compromising my what I wanted to do. It wasn't about the end user or about the end product. It was about how much money they could get off it. And, so yeah. And then I'm at Stokes. And so I worked at Stokes until I fell pregnant with my second child and came back from maternity straight into lockdown. And that was the next pivotal moment. So I really needed to come back to work. And, I don't mind kind of wearing this on my sleeve and putting it out there. But when I'd had my first baby, I quite struggled afterwards emotionally. So I knew that when I had my second baby, I needed to get back in to be me again. Like, this is Kate that's grafted since I was selling friendship bracelets at 7 years old. I've never not worked. So I needed to keep that black dog from the door by getting back into a routine. And the whole world's gone into lockdown. And at that point, my customers, so within Stokes, we sell through distributors and we also sell direct. And we've got the direct businesses broken into selling to retail and selling into food service. And most of my customers were closed. So like I probably had 400 or 500 customers on my call list, and there's probably only 20 that were still properly functioning at this point.
Yeah.
So it was a really hard sell to say to Stokes, oh, you can furlough me, but can you not? Because I really just need to work. And I know I've been off for 11 months, but I'm coming back and now can I work again? So I looked at those people that were operating, and that was my light bulb moment. I was like, oh, look, we've got 3 fish and chip shops that actually, weirdly, are bucking the trend, and they're buying more now than they were before. So I said to work, I said, look, can you just let me, just an hour and a half a day, just an hour and a half, let me start working? And they're like, okay, we'll furlough you for some of it, and then we'll do like we were all able to do, won't we?
Yeah.
So I started homeschooling in the morning, put the baby down for a nap, get on and do a bit of work from 11 till 12:30, 1 o'clock, and then back into the homeschooling in the afternoon. But in those hour and a half, that's when I was like, oh, well, what's this NFFF? Who are these people? And very handily, there's a long list on the website of all the businesses. So I thought, oh, well, I'll Google them. And I just went down this wormhole. And I think when I get into things, and again, undiagnosed ADHD, maybe, I kind of fixate on something. And I thought, there's something here. This is an itch that I want to scratch. And I started seeing so many parallels with what I knew worked for Stokes and what I know, understanding that isn't just fish and chips, right? It's not just making a batter. The things I've learned listening to your podcast, I will never need to know that the temperature of the cold water affects how the batter fries, but I do know it. And I know it when I go in the shops now. And I was just thinking, gosh, this is amazing. A whole new respect for the industry completely. And what a shame that every mouthful that you're then offering your customers, the standard sauce, is not the best that I know there is out there. So that was then my personal mission, was to say, why are you going to all this effort with the oil and the filtration and the manager forums and conversations about pea fritters that I never knew I'd need to know about, but I do, and it's interesting. And yet, what are they going to dip that into? Why does it stop? Why stop there? You've got a lot of people that will take the effort and make a homemade tartar sauce, and I totally get that. That's fantastic. But you're not taking that final care with the other condiments that you're offering. And I just thought, I just need to get my voice out there. I need to start. So I came up with a proposal to work, and they gave me a bit of budget to create like an introductory pack that I could put in the post and send out to people, all of which is done in that hour a day from my bedroom at home, working furlough with the children, with the homeschooling, with the baby in arms. And it kind of started to roll. What I would say is, at the beginning, I didn't sell any sauce because actually you guys were completely frantic. You were up and running, you were setting up websites, you were trying to work out how to do delivering platforms,
contactless
payments. But I would speak to people and just have a good chat and go, well, how's that going? And your Kelly was one of them. Chatted to her quite a few times and just chew the cud, really. And one person would say to me, I can't stop them coming in the shop. I don't know how to stop. They're not listening, the tape on the floor. Then I'd speak to someone else, and they'd said, oh, we've just put a table outside. We've literally put a table across the door. It stops them coming in. And then I'd phone the other one back. Put a table. So-and-so's doing that in, wherever. They go, that's a good idea, because you were so rabbit in the headlights of, we don't know if we can get enough product in. We don't know, the queues are so long. We're scared to have our staff in. I'd have people. It was like I was an emotional support at some point. You know, chip shop owners are talking about their kids coming back from uni because they're part of their bubble, but they're worried about them not studying. And so I just started to make friends, Mark. And then I had a long list of call when lockdown is lifted, and kind of we took a pause. We had to eat out to help out, which we're not going to get into politics and talk about that affected things, but we had to deal with that as well. And then I went back to work full time again. So things started moving along, but I always had this fish and chips in the back of my mind. And I'd done a bit of work on it. We started to get some figures in, but I knew that we hadn't scratched the surface. It was all direct. It was, I could kind of count on my fingers and toes how many customers I had, but I knew that there was something bigger out there. And so I made a proposition again to work. They listened again. We did jig around at work in terms of who I'm working with and how people can then support me with my other call list. And I knuckled down and got on with it. And that's really over the last couple of years, I think, that I've then made a massive headway. And and here we are.
Yeah. The growth trajectory for Stokes Sauces,
not
just globally, but certainly in the UK, has been nothing short of incredible. Stokes first appeared on my radar, not in the fish and chip shop, but probably at a farm shop or a deli somewhere. And I know that you said that, your customer base is split into food service and retail. Fish and chips, wasn't the first place that Stokes kind of aimed itself at. It for me as a consumer, I looked at it and I thought, it's very posh, very posh. This is something that probably should be more expensive than the leading supermarket brand or the brands that you find in that sort of environment, or the chip shops, what the chip shops are selling. But it's not. The branding has that feel to it. But then when you look at the provenance, the fact that it's, not only is it gluten-free, the packaging is also all biodegradable. You are very inclusive in the way that you've promoted. The chip shop side of things came sort of from COVID onwards. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely. Mark, it's 100%. And it's my baby. It's what I've done. And it's my kind of career. This is a combination of everything I've ever done. But I've been, and again, there's benefit of a smaller company and people having that, we're all in the building together. We're literally in the grounds of the Sheepshank's house. So we see each other all the time. And so I've got that autonomy to make the decisions and to look at which path I want to go down. And someone said to me, you make the decision. If you get it wrong, we'll have a chat about it and don't do it again, but you're not going to get in trouble. And I thought, okay, I'll do that. Do you know what I mean?
It's great to have that support and that confidence behind you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so that kind of gave me that confidence. And it's gone from strength to strength. But it is very much... So I don't think we've even answered the first question, Mark. You asked me what my job title is. We never even established that, did we?
No.
Actually, my official job title is business development manager, i.e. I look for opportunities to expand what we're doing, but they just call me Fish and Chips Kate now.
So by all accounts, we should lose you and you should go on to another market that you're going to open up.
No, I can't see myself leaving fish and chips now. That's the thing. It's been a long time coming.
Well, I hope that's not the case. So the fact of the matter is, before you opened up this market for fish and chips, you were already looking at other sectors. And the way that I've got to know you is I often see you, I'll say, on the circuit at various trade events. We always bump into each other and you always have something insightful to share with me. And you've always impressed me.
Okay.
And not wanting to, blow smoke, but it demonstrates to me that you have a deep understanding of not only of Stokes's or the ketchup business or the mayo business, but you have a really good insight into hospitality because you dive deep into that. And I know that you've always got Emma by your side as well, and she's just as driven and passionate as you. I'm just going to just start with one insight because it made an impression on me, and I'm sure that I'm going to lose you for about half an hour. But you said to me probably about 4 or 5 months ago, I think it was at Fry's Pride, you said to me, and you do realise there are more slim jabbers out there than there are vegans now. And M&S have really jumped on it and cornered the market for smaller portions. Because people still love their fish and chips, and M&S do like the tiniest portion of fish and chips, the tiniest portion, but it's perfect for this growth market. And I mean, that was just a piece of gold. I came away from that.
Yeah.
But you've given me loads of those over the months, and that's why I was really keen to get you on, because you have all of this understanding and knowledge from other sectors that cross over into fish and chips, and you share that freely for nothing. And I want you to share it all now, please.
Yeah. Okay. Right. So what I love about fish and chips is you've got this community, you work as a team, you support each other, you've got your awards, and you've got your national day, and all of these things are fantastic, and that's very unique within your business. However, Beans as at one point I had 3 fish and chip shops and over 400 food service accounts. I've got a lot of experience on the other side of that door, and I can see that where you've got this security blanket, sometimes potentially you're then not aware of what's going on and how that is actually going to affect you. And so some of the things I might say now, please don't take it personally. Please don't think I hate fish, because I really don't. Please don't think that I'm pushing a chicken agenda or anything like that over fish. I just want to report what is going on in the industry of food, in the consumer marketplace, of who's buying food, what they're choosing, why they're choosing it, how they're choosing it, so that you can choose to say, actually, I can make a slight adaptation to what I'm doing on my menu, or how I'm approaching people on socials, or even how I'm laying out my menu in my shop, which won't make much of a difference to me. But now I've thought, oh, that could make a difference, because just because things have always been done in a certain way, yes, it worked then, but sometimes you need to adapt. And I think now more than ever, people are demanding more. The way we order food through different platforms, delivering platforms, the competition within the marketplace, social influence, and that nutrition and that understanding of what we need to eat nutritionally, from some people that are really keen on the nutritions and other people that might actually not be that aware about the nutritions, but they're simply on the weight loss jabs and they are eating less, but they still have a taste for a variety of foods. Do you know what I mean? So I'll throw some things at you. So you did mention about vegans and people that are on weight loss medication. And I'm going to call it weight loss medication now, because since recording this, we've now, just this week,
we've got a pill. Yeah, we've got a pill as well as a jab.
We've got a pill now. And you know what? That is only going to open up that market, because so many people are fearful of, there's a preconceived idea of the injections are more committed. It's the same commitment, but actually an injection feels a lot more tricky to do for yourself at home than taking a tablet. And I think that's going to open up, more people will want that. So so people that are on weight loss medication versus people that are vegan. So the reason I talked to you about that was, if you've got a party of 10 people and one person is a vegan, that whole table will go to the restaurant that caters for the vegan, 100%. Right? And they won't all eat vegan food, but you need to make sure that that person is catered for. Otherwise, any family that's got someone that's a vegan, I've got a daughter that's a pescatarian, so we need to make sure that she will be able to eat something when she goes out. So we do the same thing, right? So if you go out, it's hardly anybody, that doesn't affect us. You're
you need yourself to be inclusive.
And if you're, you need to be inclusive. There's massive, and I actually think that fish and chips are very much leading the market in terms of being gluten-free aware, because you're able to do that. There's a lot of chat within your industry about that, and making yourself available for that. which is fantastic. And so you've acknowledged that that's the case. And there's a lot of people, I can't think, I saw a post yesterday, actually. I don't know who it was. It was tailors who put a post up, what's most important to you? And a lot of people underneath had written gluten-free every day on their socials. You know, there's loads of interaction in that post. Again, really good insights to what people want. And Anne does really well over there with her socials. So you've got one person, and it might be that you just need to have something that they can have that works. So when that then comes into looking at people on weight loss, I was at an event, and I won't say what event it was. However, I was at an event. What do you normally got on a table? 10 people, 10, 12 people. 2 of those people were either married to or taking themselves weight loss medication at that time. And on that one table, and I know of multiple people in that room. And so it's starting to be, and that's just people that are talking about it. When you look to America, they're always just a bit ahead of us in how they approach things. So actually, you look at them and you think, well, that's where we'll be in the next 3 to 5 years. In America, they literally wear it on their sleeve. So you look at their menus, and there'll be starters, mains, children's, and then one menu that I've seen had a flap, and at the top it had a little logo of a needle. And this is like, if you're on the weight loss drugs, this is your part of the menu. They literally had another bit just for, I mean, I can't imagine us Brits doing that, but it's just showing that whereas a lot of people are taking them secretly, I think more and more people are going to be outspoken about it. I was looking at a statistic the other day when I was researching, just to kind of, because it changes all the time. And in the UK at the moment, and bear in mind, this is just me Google AIing, but in the UK at the moment, officially there's 3% of the population are on the weight loss jabs. However, that doesn't include people that are on it for medicated reasons like diabetes. That then increases it by 7%. Wow. When a survey was done to ask, would you want to take the weight loss medication? Of those people asked that weren't already on it, 10% said yes. Like, it's people just need that courage. And as soon as that ball gets rolling of, oh, well, now I can take a tablet. Oh, and actually, Joan down the road and Dave around the corner, they're openly taking it. Jeremy Clarkson's talking about it all the time. Like, it's just a natural thing now. It's accepted. You don't feel like you're pioneering anymore and taking a risk. There's a lot of people openly talking about it. And therefore, it is going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. Okay, so how does that then affect what you're doing in your fish and chip shop? What is that doing to that consumer and their choices when they're eating? So I attended a YouGov seminar, and it was gathering a lot of statistics about where people are eating out and takeaways, etc. And one of the questions, again, because it comes up all the time, was how is the weight loss industry affecting what people are doing and how they're purchasing food. So I noted down that the average weekly spend at the moment, this is on takeaways, not food, but on takeaways, is down from £46 a week to £31 a week. So there is a big drop in what people are spending. However, what I've noticed is, and what people are saying is, they don't mind spending for quality. So they'll buy less food because they are eating less food, because that's the whole point, but they want it to be better quality. So actually, that whole culture which we had in the 80s and 90s of going and filling your face because it's rubbish food, but it's great value for money because you can eat until you feel sick. We don't want that now. What we're working towards is, I'm going to spend a proper amount of money on a very good quality, high protein, high energy product that actually I'm not going to overeat on. So if you're then looking at adapting your menu, it doesn't matter. It's not about piling it high and going, well, you get loads of value for money because you can eat all you want. Do you know, bottomless chips and things? They don't want that. We see that. We can see that with, you were talking about the potato sales have gone down because people know, well, we'll share a portion of chips then. Okay, so why don't you? If you know they're sharing portions of chips, then do a smaller portion and sell it because otherwise you've always got to get 2 people to come in, haven't you? You know what I mean? If I'm on a weight loss jab and I haven't got my mate with me, then how am I going to have my half a portion? Well, I can only buy it now when there's 2 of us. So you've halved your chance of selling it to me. So before the whole weight loss jab things, I've always been on my soapbox about this, to the point that, not that I want to get political, but when someone came and knocked on my door once to try and get me to vote for their political party, I just talked at them for 20 minutes. I've got a real problem in that you get OAP Tuesdays. Well, I want to eat with my dad any day of the week, but he doesn't want to eat more than an OAP portion on a Friday either now, right? Sorry, Dad, for you that. I've got my children who they want to eat when we go out, but my children eat proper food, but I don't want them to, you look at a children's menu, especially my pescatarian, all she ever gets is the same option of fish fingers and chips in a restaurant or macaroni cheese over and over again. Whereas when we're at home, we'll have things with different spices and flavors and salad based and but that's on the adult menu. So quite often my children will have a starter rather than a children's meal. And then you've got people coming in that are controlling what they're eating in terms of quantity but not quality. And actually all of this should just come under the umbrella of you go in and you buy a large portion, a medium portion, or a small portion. And it's not a starter main situation or adults and children's. It's all open to everybody. And actually that then solves that problem because what then happens is you get these kids that are eating a very restricted, very bland meal. They get to 12 and suddenly they've got to start eating risotto. Well, I wanted them to have risotto from the start. I don't want them to have everything with baked beans and peas. I want them to have a proper meal from the start. And I think you guys can do that within fish and chips as well, so much more easily because you are portion controlling yourselves all the way along.
You actually made me look at protein on my menu in a way that I hadn't done before. And you, again, through your insight, made me realise that some of the alternative species that are being proposed to cod aren't really an alternative to cod. They're actually an alternative to chicken. Some of those, and I'm talking specifically, about safe myself. I don't think safe is a good alternative to cod. I think it's a great alternative to chicken because it has more resistance on the palate. It requires a little bit more mastication, a bit more chewing, but it's got the same protein levels as chicken, and it works really well in a southern fried breading instead of a batter.
Yeah.
So, and we are a fish and chip business, so to be able to offer a fish in a breading instead of a batter as an alternative to cod, what it does is it restores the margin and it opens up a brand new market, a whole new market. And it was actually you that said to me, we don't push the protein levels of fish enough in our marketing.
We really don't. Emma and I do go out to lots of events and things, and we'll go out into trade events and things. And again, I recommend that you guys go to them because you can. We're going to lunch in September.
I've been. I love it.
Yeah. But what you get there is you get like keynote speakers that will talk. And actually, if you take the time to listen to them, they've got something to say. You can apply that, and apply it back. And a lot of what I'm saying is things that I've heard at these seminars that I've attended. Just because you might listen to something for an hour, but take one thing out of it, and you think, well, that's kind of pivotal. And I'm not here to say cod's out, chicken's in, or anything like that. I'm just saying what I'm noticing, what the trends are, because if you don't acknowledge the trend, you're going to get left behind. And we talked a lot about the GLP-1 medication, but not only that, this protein, there's two different people buying the food. You've got your people that are on the weight loss medication, but then you've also got your people that aren't on that, but are very health conscious and really looking into that level of protein. Irrelevant to, they're not trying to lose weight, they're trying to gain muscle, they're trying to, maintain, go to the gym. I mean, you're a gym goer. Do you know what I mean? It's stuff it's out there. That's what people are talking about. When you next in the shops and things, just have a look at the packaging, because that packaging is influencing people buying it. I went and picked up some stuff for a train journey the other day, and the food that I was buying all had in WH Smith, it's all got the protein smack in the middle where it used to be the price. Now there's a little star and it tells you how many grams of protein are in it. And you're like, okay, and what are they selling? It's an egg, it's chicken bites, that's what people want. So why do they want that? They want it because that's what is being influenced on social media, and that is what's coming through from the food trends. I'm a massive fan of Gladiators. I love Gladiators. With our family, we sit and watch that, and so then we follow the individual athletes from that, and they're all talking about this. They're worth a watch. The legend goes around and goes to loads of different takeaway settings and compares the protein versus calories in the products. Now, I would say that if you can adapt what you're doing in terms of portion and make sure that your customers are aware of the high protein in the fish that they're eating, it's a no-brainer, but they need educating. They need to understand. And if it's a simple thing as putting it on your menu of what the protein content is, because everyone else is doing it. Everyone's doing it. So it's something that your customers will be used to seeing and is influencing their purchasing choice. The other thing that I noted was, you go into some of the high street sandwich chain shops, and they're now doing half sandwiches.
Yes.
So rather than picking up a children's sandwich, you get an adult flavoured sandwich, but half the size. But if you look at the cost, it's not half the price, but people are picking them up because they wouldn't continue to sell them if they didn't make a margin on it. So it highlights that people want that kind of ability to have an adult food, a nice flavoured product, but they don't want to be eating that full baguette anymore. They want a half a sandwich or and it's just these little things that you kind of pick up on and you notice, and hopefully people are listening to this. And I'm not saying, right, it's all gone wrong, tear it up and start all over again. I'm saying, just think, oh, well, we do an adult, an OAP portion. Change the word OAP, make it inclusive. Just call it a grad portion or something,
a mini portion or whatever.
A mini portion, but cost it properly and have the trust that they're buying that because they don't want to waste throwing it away. And
it makes your stock go further as well, doesn't it? Because replacing your stock, I don't want to sell large fish because what you're actually doing is a 2-for-1 without knowing it, and the margin on large fish is quite often never as good as if you cut it into 3 minis. You're going to get a better yield. I'd rather feed 3 people with one piece of fish than feed one greedy person who's probably going to throw half it away and moan about the price of it.
So I've got a statistic here, and I'm a bit nervous about saying what it is.
Go for it. You're with friends.
Listen, I'm team fish and chips all the way.
We know that.
But I want to bring back in. I want to bring back in that talk about fish and fish that you cooked for me when we were at KFE that tasted unbelievable. That was a contender against chicken. But I saw a statistic the other day. All right. So this isn't me having an opinion. This is the statistic, and it's all about looking at how people shop online for their takeaways. So the first thing is people now pre-order. We know that. We've seen that your industry are having to make ways to have online platforms, and there's some great people out there helping to do that. And that is absolutely what you need to do, because people will just Google before they go anywhere. And side note, if you've still got your COVID rules on your website, then please just take your website down or update it, because it says a lot about you. It's not got anything updated, just have a beautiful picture rather than your Christmas opening hours in July, So people are buying online. People are in the 80s with my dad. We go back to my dad. And my dad, by the way, had fish and chips every day of the week. And he used to have skate, and he used to have haddock, and he'd have cod. And we'd have it every day of the week, every week, usually a Thursday. And we'd go on holiday, in fact, where he knew he liked the fish and chips. That's how involved kind of involved it was. So in the 80s, my dad would say, I'm getting fish and chips, and if you want it, you can have it, right? Or I'm getting Chinese. If you want it, you can have it, because I'm the one that's going out in my car to pick it up. Now, the teenagers are saying, I've got the app, so I'm choosing what we're having. What do you want, Dad? Can you pay for it? Now, that is actually how it's working now, right? When I went on that YouGov website, YouGov talk, the spend online of under 35s, they're the ones that are getting breakfast delivered to them. No one else is, but they are. They've got that online purchasing is where it's at, and they are influencing the whole family to where they want to buy. Okay, so we know we've got to hit that young demographic. That same young demographic are being influenced heavily by the chicken wave that's coming through, the amount of chicken shops that are on the high street now that is coming. And, you know, I just think embrace it and work with it, whether it's a fish flavoured comparison. But do you know what I mean? Acknowledge it. 5 years ago, the amount of people that were Googling fried chicken near me was 1 million per month, right? In 2026, it's 8 to 9 million.
Crikey.
Fried chicken near me. Fish and chips near me has stayed for the last 6 years at 3 million.
So if you want growth, you
need to have you need to acknowledge that you. And I think it was David that was talking on the pod squad, and I was listening, going, yes, that's absolutely right. You can get them come in for the chicken and then remind them about the fish. Bring in those other flavour profiles. But they're Googling fried chicken near me and they're going to that shop. We need them to come into your shop to look at the wider menu. And that isn't me giving, that's just a statistic. That's not an opinion. That is the way it is.
If you want growth in your marketplace and you don't really like the margins that you're getting on your fish, you can cook chicken on your frying range just as easy as you can cook fish, and you can use it as a tease, as a way of getting as creating traction, footfall, engagement. It can improve the performance of your marketing, your social media, just by offering a chicken product. And that could be a frozen chicken product that has no waste, built-in margin, or you can learn how to do it yourself, and then you can actually start doing an alternative to fish.
Exactly.
And align, so there's a crossover there as well.
Yeah. What interests me is I talk to my girls about school and school dinners. Do you know, most children have school dinners on a Friday. And why do they have school dinners on a Friday? It's because it's fish and chip day, right?
Yeah.
So they always have it on a Wednesday, roast dinner day, and they always have it on a Friday. And I speak to my Ellie, who's the pescatarian. She's like, I can never get to the fish on a Friday because everyone wants it. I'm the only one that can't eat the meat offering, and yet there's never enough fish for me. And so why do we then? It's the socials, isn't it? You've got this captive audience that are all keen to have fish on a Friday. They then leave school, and then up to 35, they're then focusing on chicken. What that tells me is just remind them, bring it back in, say to them, here's an idea of fish finger sandwiches, something that gets them like switched back on to the fact, I used to have that at school. That's my favourite day of the week.
Yeah.
Call it back to school Fridays. I don't know, something like that. But so I think if you can get them in the door after they've done their Google search, they then find you, you then get them in the door, and then you reintroduce them potentially to fish, or you embrace the chicken. And what I would say about this is just me, very much, again, my opinion. However, I think fish can be fish, it can be great fish, and it can be excellent fish. Chicken's sort of just chicken, right? Chicken's chicken.
Yeah, and we've got we've got so many positives. We've got the provenance. We've got you don't know where most people don't know where their chicken's coming from.
No. However, we're bringing it back into Stokes again, where Emma and I have been out and done this research, and I've been speaking to you guys in the industry, and we've gone back and we have these kind of wargaming activities at work where we'll sit and the whole sales team comes together and goes, right, what do you think? What's going on? What's happening in the marketplace? So we've had these conversations. I've said, I can see it coming. We can see it coming. So we've now introduced a whole new range of sauces that work really well with chicken. So, and they're on trend. They're Korean barbecues. They're maple and horseradish barbecue sauce, hot habanero sauce, sweet chili sauce. We've got new sachets coming out in July to support what you guys could be doing, so that you've got your base of your chicken, but then you can go, right, well, that's a frozen product that I bring out and cook to order. And actually what I can then do is build a menu around a sauce which has got an excellent provenance. We know it tastes great because we're already in love with the mayo and the ketchup and the tartar. And actually now I'm going to offer this as a with a Korean barbecue sauce or something. You guys try something else on your menu potentially, but we can help you and support you with elevating that so that it is then something that you can still be proud of, without sounding sales pitchy, just so that I'm not just saying here, these are all the problems. Actually, we're coming with a solution as well. And that then brings me into, we had a catch up, didn't we, at KFE, and you were doing some demonstrations, and you'd taken some of our hot sauce and some of our barbecue sauce and what you made with fish. Well, you tell me about it.
Well, yeah, I took some saith and I cut it into goujons, and I did a Korean style, basically emulated boneless wings, but with saith, and I covered it in your barbecue and sweet chili to make a Korean sauce. Yeah, just ad hoc, and I put spring onions and sesame seeds on it, and it was a huge hit, and didn't taint the oil, it cooked very easily. You have to mesh the pan the same way you would mesh it after battering it. If you've got a snack pan, even better. And the protein values.
Was it the same batter mix?
Yeah, just use that to make the breading stick. Just a batter mix.
Yeah.
To make the breading stick, and it was lovely. The protein values
really
is the
good.
Same as chicken, and the resistance on the palate. The way if I'd have said to you that's chicken, you would have known, but some people would have just taken, just accepted that,
It was absolutely delicious. And you did it in like bite-sized portions, which
great margin
was fantastic. Yeah. And it was it was where it was, but I could easily imagine that being in like a cone or something. I was reading an article, might be an advertorial in Try magazine, the latest one online, and Tiffany up at the works, she's doing like bao buns and things, and I was like, that's clever. That kind of street food, that going, oh, that's exciting, I'll try that, but still bring it back to fish, bring it back to understanding that then, you can still serve your fish and chips, but you've got someone in that group that might want something a bit smaller or a bit different or a bit street foody, a bit trend led, without having to reinvent the wheel.
I think we need to adapt and be more inclusive and take on board these trends in order to create the next generation of fish and chip lovers, because eventually they all come back to that traditional historic iconic meal, and that needs to remain unchanged as well. But while we're experiencing this, I'm going to call it an adjustment in the supply of the raw material, and we get people onto different alternative species. I think we need to restore our margins. There are things on my menu that I want to be selling at the moment because they benefit me, and if it opens up a whole new market, then that's got to be a great thing as well.
Yeah, and keeps you excited, doesn't it? Like keeps your staff excited about the possibility of different ideas, and ask your staff, what is it you're eating?
They just love to try new stuff.
Yeah,
to be honest.
Yeah, I get a lot. I've made friends with quite a few of the young fish fryers and finalists, and and they're actually really, Jamie, he's on here, isn't he? So the insight and just that flexibility of going, I'll give that a go. Yeah, that's a good idea. I'll try that. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. And if it does, fantastic. We'll kind of keep going with it. Again, someone on one of your podcasts, I'm sure, said something about, we call it a special until it's so good that we can't take it off the menu, and then it's a permanent fixture. So just give yourself permission to have a go, but it doesn't have to be
menus
forever.
Don't have to be as rigid as they have been in the past. I think there was a period of time when there was an expectation of what you would find on a chip shop menu. For example, I haven't sold pies for many, many years. For me, pies don't work, because in order to sell a good pie, it has to be baked. You can't microwave a pie. It only has a certain amount of lifespan in the display before I think it starts to degrade. It starts to dry out, or for whatever reason it doesn't eat well. And whichever flavour you've got in the display, they want the other one. So if you've got beef and onion up there, they want chicken mushroom. I think the worst thing well, the two worst things that were the nails in the coffin for pies for me. One was the fact that supermarkets started doing them for less than I could put them on, sell them for. And the other thing was if I cooked 6 and sold 5, I made nothing, and the one that was left, I ate. That's because I
and then you're going to pay for your gym membership.
So if there was a pie left, I ate all the pies, and it wasn't good for me either. So pies, and now people come in and say, do you do pies? I say no, but if you pick one up on the way home, you can take your chips from here. But I do this and I do this and I do this. Why don't you have that instead?
Yeah, exactly. I think it's just, and I say that about sort of bringing back what I do with Stokes and the conversations that I'm having all the time. My biggest barrier to people moving to Stokes has always been that the other name in the industry is synonymous with ketchup. It's a bit like the Hoover or the vacuum, right? Actually, we've all got Sharks now. We don't have Hoovers,
call them Hoovers,
still say, we still call them Hoovers. And so a lot of people will go, where's the Heinz? But actually, they just mean ketchup, or they just want the opportunity to try something else. And I always say to people, it's ultimately just a box of ketchup. Just try it. If it doesn't work, I'm not going to hold it against you. But most of my customers stay with it, Most of them, they go, actually, no, it's much better, isn't it? I'm like, yeah, just having that confidence to make a change.
Your point of sale's really, really good. And it gives a presence, I think. It adds value to what I'm doing.
Yeah.
It sets me apart. I'm proud to say that I'm a user of Stokes. And I like the portion sizes as well. The sachets seem to be more generous. I actually made a mistake, which I need to clear up. Just on belt and braces.
Yeah.
Your packaging is recyclable, not biodegradable.
Yeah. So our whole range, any Stokes product is recyclable.
Not biodegradable. That was my mistake. And also, most of your range is gluten-free, but not quite all of it. So I apologise for that.
Yeah. So in fact, the sachets that we're selling, and that is, it's because our posters, the POS that you're talking about, they've got the gluten-free logo because those 5 sachets are all gluten-free.
That's where I made the mistake.
It's about 70% of the whole range, including all of our retail bottles and things. Because, if people don't know, we do so much stuff: jams, marmalades, onion marmalades, chutneys, all sorts of things. So we're working on it. We are working on increasing that gluten-free.
I don't think we would have had listeners write in anyway, but they were 2 mistakes I made. I felt as though I ought to.
Yeah, using Stokes within all the things that I've said, and I want people to know that it all comes from a place of absolutely wanting your industry to do well. Listen, I wouldn't be at every event that I can be at. I've supported the National Fish and Chip Day every year that we've done it, and that kind of gets bigger and bigger for us at Stokes every year. What I can contribute back, all those relationships that I've got are because I want people to move forward. And I genuinely know that, people that move to Stokes have seen the benefit of it. And, I was talking to, I'm going to name drop again, he doesn't even know. So Kieran, who was one of the Young Fish Fry finalists.
Kieran Bullpit.
Yeah, at Donington's. So he said to me, I've been trying to get him to take Stokes for ages. I've sent him samples via Jamie, who then inadvertently didn't take them down to him, probably get them himself. I've done all sorts. And finally, I saw him at an event. I said, just take this box. I'm not putting it in my car and taking it home. Take it. Do what you want with it. And he came back and he said, and she said, you know what? Actually, I can see the benefit of this because I feel proud to sell this product. There's something that I can talk about with this. I know that when they taste it, they'll like it. I'm not selling them something that they didn't know this will enhance their meal. It'll help. So I've got no qualms about. And I was like, yes, thank you. You've got it now. And that's kind of that message. It's having that confidence to tweak your condiments menu slightly to a brand that isn't Heinz. However, what I would say is that over 60% of people now know our brand in the UK when we do independent surveys quite regularly. And it's over 60% now. And of the people that have tasted it, consistently over 80% of them either like or love it.
Yeah.
They really like it. And I think going back to Rick again and that, those pillars of what we do and why we do what we do at Stokes, you can get someone to try Stokes for any number of reasons, whether it's you've had me on a podcast, or it's given away for free, or it's in a restaurant, or it's you're keeping up with the Joneses next door, or whatever reason it is. People will try something once, but ultimately they only try it again for a second time if they liked the taste of it. And the fact that 80% of people like or love it and come back again and again, and we've got just such a strong following of people that love it, that should give people the confidence to say, look, you obviously you don't say this to your customers, but in my mind, I'm thinking, I don't ask you when I change my potatoes because the potato season's changed. I don't ask you what temperature to fry my oil and how many times a week I should be changing it. I don't ask you the temperature of the batter, water in the batter. I don't ask you how I'm deboning my fish or anything. But somehow I'm giving you permission to tell me which sauce I'm providing. So just have that confidence if you like it and say, do you know what? It might not be a brand that you've tasted yourself, but try it because I love it and it's the best sauce that I know for the best meal that I can provide you. And that is why I've got these key accounts that are out there, and it's just, and Stokes is going from strength to strength, like you said, and people having that confidence. And ultimately, you don't have to keep doing it, but I know that you will, because that's once you start with Stokes, you kind of keep going, and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and you then move on, and that where you were selling a sachet, they go, cool, I really like that. And this is a direct quote from Hennigan's, so David and Eleanor and Gemma in Wales. Gemma was one of my OG phone calls back in lockdown, and they're massive Stokes supporters and always support me in the industry. She said, yeah, one day I had someone coming in and they were buying like 5 or 6 sachets at a time. And I said, oh, what are they doing that for? She said, well, they said, I just want it with my breakfast every day of the week. It's my source of choice now. And in that moment, I was like, oh, my God, whereas I've been trying to sell sachets into the industry, we've got a whole retail stage. So that's where we've then started selling our squeezy bottles in and doing really well with that. And because we're not completely saturated on the market, it's a product that is a fast-moving consumer good, so people will buy it on the weekly. So they might pick it up in a supermarket one day or a farm shop another day, but then they'll also pick it up in their fish and chip shop. And that wasn't on my business model. That added retail element wasn't part of it, but very much is now. And I've got some people that have completely gone to town and they'll order £300 or £400 worth of stock, which is, Barry Whitehead at Vans. So he said to me, he said, oh, people that like fish, they like it all the time. So he sells mustard dill sauce and all the products that he knows would go well with fish throughout the week, and he'll sell it retail, and it just kind of grows like that, doesn't it? Yeah. So yeah, I think Stokes really supports your industry. It supports the margin. It's not a giveaway product. It's a product that if you are used to giving away product sources and you move to Stokes, you can then sell it confidently. And the added value for the customer, like you say, it tastes amazing. 40-gram proper portion, recyclable sachet, British brand. And they then buy that. Which sauce do you need? They choose which sauce they want. They buy it. And you've then, A, you've made a bit of margin on it, but B, you're then not cutting into the margin on your meal.
You're not subsidising it with a condiment.
Yeah. With the freebies, right?
They still get the salt and vinegar and a smile for free.
Absolutely. If I could wave a magic wand and say what I would really like, first of all, in the fish and chip world, that service with a smile, you're unique in that the shop owners are front facing. They might be behind the fry, they might not literally be on that, but they can hear and see in the shop. There's not many owners, mostly they're tucked away in food service in the kitchen out the back. So they're front facing, they are in the hot seat, and yet they're also seeing the customers. So you've got that. And I would say, get your staff to understand that when they come in, and that recognition, that smile, you don't get that everywhere. That the added value of that to people that are coming and buying face to face is something, I've seen things where people are comparing, oh, well, you can buy a Marks and Spencer's meal deal for this amount of money, therefore we need to make sure we've got the same cost value. You go and buy your meal deal in a supermarket, You then go to the till and you do it yourself, and then you pack the bag with your bag you brought yourself, and then you get in the car and you have your car park picnic. Or you go to your fish and chip shop and you get service with a smile. And I think that has so much added value. I think that's going right back to the beginning of our conversation. That's why everyone came out and continued buying fish and chips in lockdown, because there was that
feel-good factor. And
that feel-good factor of there's that person that I've seen every Thursday or Friday or whatever for the last however many years, and coming back in. But from me, what I want you to do is go, hi, what do you want? Is that open or wrapped? Do you want salt and vinegar? And which sauce do you need? Because if you ask them which sauce they need, they'll choose a sauce.
Yeah.
Don't say, do you want sauce? Because that's a yes, no. Which sauce do you need? And hopefully it'll be Stokes.
So I feel as though I need to wind this up.
Okay.
I've really enjoyed, and I want you back for more insight. Where can people find out more about Stokes Sauces? And
the simplest way to do it is you can either email me at kate@stokessauces.co.uk, or if you go on our website, there's a button at the top that says trade. Click on that. It'll give you a few questions, your postcode, your phone number, etc., and then it'll be me that phones you up.
Is there anything you wanted to talk about that we haven't covered in this chat? Because I really feel as though people have got to know Kate better, which is why I wanted you on.
What was it all about? Yeah.
And I feel as though you've been really insightful. You've shared loads of really useful stuff.
So.
But was there anything that you were, because I know you're a fan of the podcast, and I don't want you to leave, listen to this on a dog walk and think, oh God, I wish I'd said that, or I wish I'd said this. If you do, you're always welcome back.
I would just say, oh gosh, it's very gushy. Just thank you for welcoming me into your industry. Thank you for that kind of, from all those people, you talked about the POS that I've designed. Actually, what I was doing was designing it and then taking it to my friends in the industry and going, does this work? From the sachet dispenser boxes that had a lid, and then I was told, get that lid off, take that off. That paint finish doesn't work. This is better. All of that I've worked. My success is as a result of all of those people that I cold called, literally just picked up the phone and cold called right back in lockdown and made friends with. And so, all these events and things I go to, I love them and I make new contacts all the time, but it's really good to touch base and see people. So thank you for embracing me and Stokes and allowing me to carve my career. Do you know what I mean? This is a big deal for me.
Well, I'm going to thank you too, because whenever I go to an industry event, you're one of the safe spaces that I always look for you in a crowd, because I know I can always go and talk to Kate, and I always come away richer, feeling that as though I've learned something. You've always got something interesting to say, and
I've always got an opinion, Mark. That's the problem.
Well, you're alleged. Thank you so much for coming on, and I hope you enjoy this on your dog walk. And I know that. I will. I listen to it back. I don't know. We'll see. Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks again, and I'll see you probably at the next trade event. What is next? What's coming up next?
Isle of Ely.
Isle of Ely. Yeah. Oh, well, that's very local to me, so.
Yeah.
I'll see.
So we'll do that. Yeah. I think that's the next one, isn't it? So that would be a good one. Yeah. That is going to be a good one. There's some good key speakers there as well. Yeah. Another plug.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay. I'll see you then. Take care. Thanks.
All right. Cheers. Bye.